really getting turned on to psychedelics at a young age. And this doesn't work for everyone. So it's not
Mhm.
like I am a proponent of doing deep ceremonial work, which I got, turned on to later. But, you know, my siblings and my friends and that they were all doing these same psychedelics and it wasn't working in the same way for them. But I did have like several, shamanic experiences at a young age.
Prove to me that you are alive.
2, 3. What's really good, everybody? Welcome to the Prove to Me That You're Alive Lightcast, which is a podcast. I'm supposed to say this right now because Google AI is being weird. Today, I have a super special guest. I'm a huge fan of this guest. And, with all seriousness, I have to say this that the day and age, I hate to say this, sounds so cliche, the day and age, but the times that we are living in, and with Western medicine becoming, global medicine, I've myself lost people. A lot of people are getting sick. A lot of people are not knowing where to turn to, what to look for. Or should they try herbs? Should they try, vegan diet? And that's why we have people like our guest today. They have sort of become the guides for us. They are the people that we tune into to find out, what's good for us, what's bad for us, what we should try, what's another alternative, if you will, man. So I'm super super excited today. I'm a huge fan once again. The one, the only, from Nourish Wellness, Rebecca Rozelle is here. I'm gonna give you a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And it's Nourish Wholeness, nourishing your own unique wholeness. So, Nourish Wholeness. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm so what I really love about you is your concepts, the way your posts are not just a lot of herbalists. They will post something and it will just be a little thing. You come into every post like a real, conceptual thing that you are breaking down to people of why this is this or why this is that. And that's, I really really got to love that about you. Again, I'm a huge huge fan. So Rebecca, like the way we like to do this is to get to know you somewhat. So I'm gonna give you the floor. I'm gonna take my self out of the screen. If you could tell us, like, where are you from? What was your environment like growing up? Maybe what were your parents like? What was your childhood like? And how did you kind of, come into being the way that you are now? The floor is yours.
yeah, thank you. So I think what you're referring to, like when you see my posts, is that I'm a shamanic herbalist. So I work very closely with plants and um, I work with plants one on one to get to know them and other like entheogenic medicines throughout my life. I had a very um I'll say like chaotic childhood. I lived
Mm.
probably in over 20 places by the time I was and
Wow.
with a lot of abuse and drug addiction and mental illness running in my family. And so there were a lot of deaths and like, jail and prison and domestic abuse and sexual abuse and I think what I saw at a really young age was a lot of the medicalization of children and
Mm.
being put on pharmaceuticals at a very young age psychopharm, and seeing like a lot of my friends and siblings, getting put on different things like Ritalin was really popular at that
Yeah.
time. Now it's more Adderall, I think, but it's basically pharmaceutical speed. And we used to. I think that they say these different substances as gateway drugs, but I mean pharmaceuticals are the true gateway drugs. And
Mm.
I have two siblings that later became heroin addicts, and then as heroin started to be phased out, then fentanyl and mixing a lot of different substances together. And
Mhm.
so throughout my life, I've just seen a lot of dependency. And at a young age got turned on to psychedelics myself, and I'm now looking back at it, like seeing that I came in with a lot of protection to do generational ancestral work as a pattern
Wow.
breaker,
Hmm.
and um, like disrupting the whole scene, and cycle breaker, it's like when these things started happening to me, these different like forms of, childhood abuse and all of this, it's like, I even had the consciousness as a child of this ends with me, this is not
Mm.
happening anymore. And, like as a parent now, like seeing my kids like go through these same ages that I was when these things were happening, I can see now like how vulnerable they are, but like not, but like also having a different environment for them, that these things are not going to come into their lives. And these things go really, really deep, and to break these patterns and these cycles, we need allies. And for me, the most intimate relationships that I have found, that I've been able to go deepest with, are with the earth medicines. And I was very fortunate at a young age, after going through, like becoming a young adult and having to navigate the world, going into some, my first jobs were in strip clubs, like when I turned 18. And that very quickly was like, oh my God, I need to get out of here. And this was in the Northwest. And so I went and lived with my friends that were going to college out in Baltimore for a little while. But then that city life wasn't working out for me. And I came back to the Northwest and started building trails. And that was like a very definitive time in my life of being like coming back to the earth, working
Hmm.
really, really hard, like understanding, like how deep embodiment through physical labor and being in the backcountry of these very beautiful places is was like nourishing my spirit in a way. But that work is very physically demanding, and the food out there wasn't very good. And so I had a woods boss that had talked about organic farming. And so the next year, I went and started organic farming, which I did for about 5 years during the on season. And within that 5 years, I was on one of the organic farms and heard my longtime shamanic herb teacher come on the radio. At that time, I had no concept of who she was, but she started talking about nourishing herbal infusions and the wise woman tradition. And I was captivated and knew right away. Her name is Susan Weed, and she has 7 books out now, and she's quite the prolific teacher, very controversial teacher, but she's very fierce in the way that she teaches. But for me, she was the right teacher, and she taught me. I went out to her place the next spring. This was in the fall. I applied, got there the next spring. And I mean, that was its own initiation, just getting there at that age and acquiring enough resources to get there. And so when I went there, she very much teaches about working with one plant at a time and
Mm.
forming a relationship with it. And a lot of the herbs that she uses, a lot of the plants that she's in relationship with, are very common plants that grow all around us. And they are some of the most nourishing plants that are available to us. Well, so you can use these plants in large quantities for long periods of time. And I didn't realize until several years later that, I mean, even though she called it a shamanic apprenticeship, and that I was doing this shamanic work with her and going through all these kind of like cycles of consciousness while I was there. I was very young though. I was only 21 years old, right?
Mm.
So it was like I was still like deconditioning from so much of my childhood trauma at that point, that it took me several years of working with these plants to kind of really realize the kind of shamanic relationship that I was building with them over a
Mm.
long period of time. time, and that they were becoming a part of who I was and a part of my identity and like how I express myself in the world. And like, but I was still, you know, very like shut down in a lot of ways. Like I didn't talk for a very long time in my life. Like, I mean, I would talk, speak and stuff, but I was, because of like all of the sexual trauma that I had, it like shut my throat down. Like, and even I think it was until I started doing the radio show. I was on a podcast with Susan. She and her daughter hired me to do a podcast with them. And it was like, I mean, this teacher just gave me all of the medicine that I needed. And even though it was the most difficult things for me to show up, I mean, it was her podcast, but I would support her and like get guests. It's 90-minute Q&A and then a 30-minute interview with a different guest every week. We did it every Tuesday for 7 years. I was on there with her.
Wow.
And I would introduce the show with her and talk to her in the beginning, and then, you know, open up the line for callers. So I was like very communicative. And then I did a lot of other work for her, like some consultations and teleseminars and all these other things that I was doing for her at that time. But I had to use my voice a lot and express myself a lot. And at first it was like so uncomfortable to be using my voice and like people hearing it. And then like I would be doing editing and I would have to hear it. And it was just like this, like, you know, like this whole awakening through expression of my voice. And now it's like I'm so thankful because I can express myself through my voice. And it's a beautiful thing for me because I was shut down for so long. And yeah, and I think that these plants are really asking for a voice right now too. I feel like, you know, it's like they can be stepped on for so long and overlooked for so long, but they do have such a place in the healing of ourselves, of our soil, of our, you know, of everything right now is like giving people intimacy with the place that they live. And I see so many people like trying to find it in other places outside of their natural environment. And I'm like, you know, really, we have access to so much where we are. It's like I'm looking around right now, there's all these wild plants around me that I did not plant, right? And so there's comfrey and there's poke and there's the Queen Anne's lace and dandelion and plantain. And, you know, it's just like so much medicine in
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, like 3 square feet, right? Like, and people just overlook it. And it's not to say that like our modern medical system doesn't have a place. It's like, of course, but that's usually people's first choice when it should be their last, you know,
Yeah.
like this, what we are communing with at all times. And it's like, oh, because it's so available, it's like undervalued in our society. It's like people don't want to like put value in the most simplest of things, you know. And I find that with myself, even as somebody that works with like plants and does this kind of healing, that, you know, it's because I don't have like a PhD or something like that, that, you know, it's like it doesn't equate to having value, you know. And it's like this whole kind of paradigm shift I feel like we're in right now, that like, you know, like these overlooked and like, you know, often stepped on and like not like they are some of the greatest teachers of our time, you know, like, you know, it's like my good friend who lives next door to me started a homeless village. There are several of them here. And um I resonate a lot with the unhoused population, you know, and because there's a huge population here where I live. And it's like these people are so beautiful, and like that we, you know, like even just being in the communication and like seeing like the dynamics and like seeing like it's like the realness of it all, and like not being like pushing it away, but like seeing that, you know, like how wounded our world is, that like we don't, you know, like oftentimes find a place for these like more marginalized like population of things to, even though it's like what is like so prevalent. I mean, it's like the same with the plant, you know, it's like it's everywhere, you see it everywhere, but it's like it's the consciousness wants to ignore it for some reason, and yeah, I just I just think that we're living in a very ripe time for people to be awakening right now, and that this is a part of it is like, and in some ways I'm like, are we going to be forced to awaken to
Wow.
having this these plants because
Wow.
and have knowledge what's happening because of possibly the collapse of our society and like being able to get the things that we need. And, it's like, oh, now you're forced to come into
Mhm.
communication relationship to the place you were in. And you're forced to be in communication and relationship with the people that you have been ignoring. It's like, or, can we find community in a way that's like, I mean, it's everybody's best guess what's going to happen right now, but it feels really like things are really shifting big time right now. I mean, as we're seeing slathered across our feeds, right? So yeah, um, yeah, I'm not sure where to go from there, but if you have another question.
I got plenty of questions. I just want to say that I really want to thank you for being, so honest, for being so kind. I'm like being penetrated by your kindness. I've been blessed to have, strong women in my life. My mom is my hero. My wife is my hero. I was born and raised in Ukraine. A lot of the stuff that you're talking about, very abusive household, and I'm in recovery myself, like, in drugs and everything. I even, I was on painkillers at one point in my life, because that's the way I was. Like, I thought I was medicating myself. I remember back in 2004, I finally, because I was always like soul searching, and I finally found what we call the Slavic Vedas, and the Vedas, it's a Vedic culture, so it's very like return to your natural, cultural earth, meaning state, and the one thing that really blew my mind, and I remember at 19 thinking this, and something that I seen you say, is that the Vedas, the Slavic Vedas, teach us that, look, these plants are our brothers and sisters. These animals are our brothers and sisters. So you're no longer looking at something like, oh, I'll just rip from the ground and I'll use it anyway, I want. So when I seen some of your posts and you're saying, look, approach these plants as your, your teachers or your companions, or your friends. And so I just want to say I really appreciate, like, you being so honest, you being so super kind. And I think you're right that right now, everyone talks about the apocalypse. I think it's we're going through something global, but also something personal is going on with each person. I'm really noticing, people struggling in all different types of aspects. But I want to say your story, you're like this warrior, because you had this crazy, background. What I want to know is, throughout your childhood and your teen years and you coming into adulthood, was there spirituality around you, and was there sort of a inner voice that was guiding you? Like, what I want to know is, what was helping you go through all of that turmoil?
Yeah, there was a lot that was going on, and it was very challenging to navigate and not always the most graceful on my part. And it's not that I didn't fall into my own addictions and all of these things, but really getting turned on to psychedelics at a young age, and this doesn't work for everyone, so it's not
Mhm.
like I am a proponent of doing deep ceremonial work, which I got, turned on to later. But, you know, my siblings and my friends and that they were all doing these same psychedelics, and it wasn't working in the same way for them. But I did have like several, shamanic experiences at a young age. And so I think something my herb teacher says is it takes 7 lifetimes to become an herbalist. And so
Mhm.
I really do believe that I've been on this path for many lifetimes. And so
Right.
I came in I said, as like, and there are people that are going that are in the our lineages that come in to do this work, you know, and probably if you're listening to this right now and you found yourself here, you are probably one of those people, and your life is
Yeah.
probably very challenging, and you've been, you know, given, it's like you were saying, you've had your own addictions as well, and there's nothing, you know, addiction is actually a really beautiful thing, I think, you know, and some of
Mm.
my you know, some of the most tender souls fall into addiction, and some of the most beautiful people, you know, because it is a way of acclimating in a world that is very disconcerting, like very hard to navigate. And, you know, sometimes we don't find the strength to push through, and that's why people relapse so much. And you'll see them like on a very strong spiritual path, and then all of a sudden, you know, they do heroin one time and they OD and die or something, you know, which
Mhm.
happened to a good friend of mine, you know. And it's just like, but what I just feel like that yeah, psychedelics for me were really helpful, because it kind of, it like helped me to start forging a path of like, the lights were just turning on, like I would have like, you know, celestial communication during those
Mhm.
times.
What
Then
kind
I
of, I'm
got
sorry for interrupting. What kind of psychedelics?
um my first, at a very young age, I'll say, well, you know, of course I like smoke cannabis, and then I got turned on to mushrooms, and I'd had like a very, you know, my first couple mushroom trips were very high dose. Now that I'm more familiar with dosing, I was taking really high doses and like having very shamanic experiences. And now that I work deeper with the mushroom in the ceremonial
Mhm.
context, like for the past 10 years, um, I can, I'm very visionary on the medicine, and have like a very intimate communication with the mushroom. And so I'm like, this is probably, you know, a lot has carried over in from other lives, you know. It's
Right,
like
right.
priestesses, you know, like we were in temples, like, I mean, you know, doing this work, and I came here to, you know, really rattle the cage of my ancestral path to get it back
Mm.
into a more loving and harmonious way of being, you know. So, and it's happening, you know. It's like we're definitely living in a different way. My kids are seeing a lot different way of being, you know, and it's a blessing. But so first it was mushrooms, and then LSD. I did quite a bit of LSD growing up. And when I moved to Seattle as a young adult, I was doing MDMA, but that was like not good for my brain, basically.
Mhm.
I have a very
I
hard time.
remember the ecstasy days.
Yeah, and it was different back then. Like I've
Mhm.
tried it in more recent years, and I was like, this isn't the same anymore. It's
Yeah.
not. But I'm not sure what was going on with it back then, and who knows what was in it, you know. So,
Mhm.
um but yeah, mostly just those at that age. But then after I had kids, I was like knowing that I needed to do some deeper work on myself, because a lot of my patterns were coming up, and I didn't want to fall into more alcohol addiction and stuff like that. That was like, you know, an easy escape, you know, and like so
Mhm.
prominent. So I went down to Peru and did some work with the Shipibo shaman Estela Pengosa, and with ayahuasca. And it's amazing that I fell into her care, because she works with like a whole like all of the plants. Like she's very much in like, if she was placed here in the Northwest, she would be working with plants the same way that I do. You know, it's like
Mhm.
one-on-one relationship, and going very, very deep and understanding, you know, like the whole like spiritual being of the plant. And so she was laying down a lot of lessons when I went down there and worked with her, and she recognized who I was even more than I did when I went down there, and that
Wow.
was quite an amazing gift. And then it took me a little while, like a couple years after that, and I started working with the mushroom. I found another teacher, Shona Home, who is a medicine woman, and she was based here in the Northwest at the time. And she worked with like a lot of ancestral foods and uh, deep mushroom work. And I did first an initial 5 day stay with her where we did 2 ceremonies, and then I went into doing a 2 year mentorship with her and 5 other women. And she lived out in Vermont at that time. She moved out to Vermont. And then I got turned on to, I mean, I have quite the extensive psychedelic background, which is, this is pretty exposing, but I got turned on to Bufo alvarius, DMT, and did several sessions with the White Light Collective, and that opened up, I mean, like a huge can of worms for me. That was it's like an atomic bomb goes off in your pineal gland for me anyway. And so much of any repressed, a lot of what came up for me because of the people that I was doing it with was a lot of shadow sexuality, and how, this planet, like what it does to children and like strips innocence away from them, and
Yeah.
very through these, you know, I feel like my path is almost like pretty mild compared to like a lot of what's going on this planet, but it was very revealing in the way that I had like a direct experience and line with it, and like that the medicines all just showed, I mean, I just see so much of the patterning that each of us carries in that way, and like the inversion of the true sacredness of what it is to create and be in harmony with life. And like these medicines were very instrumental in that. And so I had been doing that work with Bufo, and it was becoming very challenging to navigate and like to integrate. And I ended up back down in Peru with Estella to do some more work, because I was like, this is like, I need some deep medicine, because this is bringing up so much stuff that I don't, you know. And this is a cautionary tale, because with all of the tools I have and all of the earth medicine in all of it, I was catapulted out of my body, and things can really get in and attach during
Mm-hmm.
these. And you have to be really careful, who you're doing the medicine with. And like, even a lot of the facilitators aren't aware of what they are allowing it. And
Yeah,
so
and what they can even carry on the astral level, man. Yeah.
Prove to me that you are alive.
I'm sitting here, and while you were gone, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I'm so thankful for like the universe sending, these kind of people to me. Like, thank you so much, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, getting very inspired by your story and your energy and everything. All right, so you were talking about something very important, that sometimes you can be in a ritual, in a shamanic ritual, and sometimes there could be things going on an astral level that people don't even understand what the kind of energy they could be carrying with themselves, that then can kind of jump over to you, so to speak. Like, is that what you were trying to kind of say at the end?
yeah. So I didn't know exactly what had happened to me, like until later, and doing, because although I had like, I mean, I don't know if some people would just give up at a certain point and be like, this stuff's messing me up, I'm not gonna do
Crazy.
it.
Yeah.
And but for me, it took me much deeper, and I didn't know until later that I was picking stuff up, like
Hmm.
entities. Just, these things are, kind of difficult to talk about, because I think a lot of people do have some sort of entity possession, but they're just
Yeah.
not aware, and
Exactly. Yeah.
so me, I went back down to Peru and worked with Estella, and within the one of the ayahuasca ceremonies I was a part of, an African elder came through and was very prominent next to me, like in my visionary state, and was like, basically telepathically telling me that ayahuasca couldn't do the work
Mm.
that I needed, and that I needed to work with iboga, that I needed to do the African medicine. And I didn't have any idea how this was going to take place, and or whatever, and went back home and continued my life. And then through my bufo work, somebody had come into my life who was an ibogaine provider and a bufo facilitator, and we ended up just starting to talk and communicate, and we formed a romantic relationship together, and we started doing some work together, and like I had a lot of plants, and he was working with his these other very powerful medicines, and
Mm.
so we were serving people and doing lots of consultations and stuff like that with people. And wow, we had quite the journey together, and I didn't know that he had been diagnosed bipolar. He never
Wow.
disclosed me, and he ended up having a psychotic break in my home, basically. And I had to have him evicted because he wouldn't leave, or like he was forced to leave at this point.
Mhm.
And then he went into a mental health facility, and all of these things happened. I mean, there was so much around this situation, but I ended up terminating a pregnancy that I had that was his, that came through during an ibogaine
Mhm.
journey that we were on together. And I was in traumatic shock basically after everything that had happened.
I'm sorry to
And
hear that.
yeah, yeah, it was really, really probably one of the most intense things. But it took me into the deepest healing that I ever could have asked for. I went down to Costa Rica and worked with iboga after this, and that medicine is the deepest root medicine,
Mm.
and it did show me, like the reason things were getting in is because I had like I don't know if it was precognitive, or you know I was very young. I was about 4 years old
Mhm.
when I had initial kind of sexual trauma come in that I had
Oh my
completely.
God. Sorry.
And so it showed me this, but because of that opening, and this is why with these medicines, it's like these facilitators don't know about these openings oftentimes,
All right.
and because I had this opening, things could attach to me, and it had never been sealed up, like my soul was fragmented, a part of me left, there was an opening there, and I would have never known this had I not had this opportunity to go do this like deep
Wow.
ancestral medicine, and it showed me, it sealed up all my leaks. But I had picked up all of these entities afterwards
Mhm.
during throughout my life because of this, basically.
Mhm.
And it's just something that these traumas can do. And I don't know, like for me, it's like a part of like my shamanic path and like initiation as a medicine person to like take it to these depths. I'm not sure like if other
Mhm.
people experience it in this way, you know what I mean? Like I but this is what happened for me, and why I share is like because it is, I feel like, a very cautionary tale of like these deeper traumas that we've experienced can really open us up to, you know, a lot of different complexities. And anyway, I'm super thankful to Iboga showing me, and like, you know, um, it hasn't been without its own like challenges of integrating, because it
Mhm.
is such a deep, and it's like very hard after you do a medicine like that to relate with the westernized world, I'll say, you
Right.
know. So, but I mean, I've always kind of been an outcast and a loner anyway.
Mhm.
Now, like the challenge for me is finding a way to be of service in this world that where I feel like it's authentic and I can sustain my life, which you know, it's I think a challenge for all of us, but um yeah. So that's my psychedelic story. And then I got connected through that iboga journey to a woman that works with 5-MeO, which is the
Mhm.
synthetic form of what bufo is.
Mhm.
And basically, I was still in traumatic shock after I had done iboga. Just I was still had so much trauma like trapped in my body, and I did that medicine and had a complete cathartic release and was able
Wow.
to move. It's a very somatic medicine, I found, and like this is what a lot of people say about that medicine is that it moves trauma through your body. And yeah, just really thankful that these medicines are available, and that, you know, like when you step onto the path, just like having faith that you're going to find your way, you know, because it's a very, it does, you know, like the spiritual path, the path of, you know, the medicines, it doesn't communicate in these ways that are being forced on us by
Mhm.
society through all of this. It's like a much more nuanced like understanding of having like faith in the intelligence of something outside, you know, like in this intelligence that like isn't just outside of ourselves but like lives through us, you know, and like
Mhm.
opening ourselves to that, which is, you know, so contradictory to what the mainstream is. It's like they just want to force feed you whatever, and you know that works or doesn't work in a way, but people think it works for them, you know.
Mhm.
But it's been what's been going on here for a while on this planet. So yeah.
Yeah, I just as you're telling me the story, I'm realizing once again, I'm gonna say it, that you're a warrior spirit, and what I've learned, and even through myself, is that you like it or not, sometimes you hate it. That in this one lifetime, it seems like we go through these like deaths and rebirths, and they are just like these super crazy, like some at times dramatic, and there are these deaths with we feel like we completely die, and then we have to rise like the phoenix. And so as you're telling me this, I'm reminded, because of a lot of stuff that I've been experiencing. I definitely want to ask you about your work and about plants. But if you could please, because a lot of people, everyone is going through a tough time right now with the wars going on, and with AI, and kids are just being bombarded from left and right. But I know that the girls these days, young girls, go through a lot, from social media to pop culture to wear makeup or wear high heels, or have a butt operation, have lips up, whatever. Like, so they're like, I'm feeling like girls are extra being bombarded. Um so do you have any advice for young women these days, and for girls these days, with all of this hypersexualization and everything? Do you have something to tell them, to give them? I'm sure you do, because you're such a warrior. Like, what would you say to the young girls these days? How do they find their own path?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing for young girls right now is like finding a mentor, somebody, because oftentimes our mothers don't cut it, especially, you know, like when there's a lot of trauma that hasn't been addressed. That young girls need a mentor that can help them to reach maturity, you know, like to walk through and like, I mean, what our culture is sorely missing are these rites of passages for our young people. And So, I mean, women's circles are, if young women have access to women's circles, especially multi-generational women's circles, I see that I did a women's circle here in my home for many years, and I've taken a break these last couple of years, but you know, I have seen that for especially girls and adolescents being very, very, very healing. And, also if their mothers are involved, like, so helpful in creating some kind of like community and ritual, and having access to other women that are going through different cycles of life, and knowing that,
Mm,
stages aren't going to last forever, and that you will make it through it, but you're going to be a different person on the other side of that,
mm,
and that we need to honor and recognize that, like, as like, you're not going to be stuck in this forever. We are all moving through cycles of life. And,
mm,
the beautiful thing about being a woman is that we do have these different cycles of menstruation, and then
mm,
choose to be a mother of, holding and carrying life and lactating and all of and then going into the elder years and approaching menopause and going through menopause. And like, these life cycles are very set for women, and that when there's a community of women, we get to experience each other going through it. And then, the realness of life really gets set in for people. It's like it acts as, forms of birth control, and like just being in community, like seeing
mm,
like women go through, or, like having access to like fertility awareness, and like, like, and knowing that you have a choice and autonomy in your reproduction,
mm.
these different things that like empowering the individual, like, so that the women have choice and autonomy over their own body and their own choices, and that they're not just a fucking conduit for the medical to
Right.
have their way with,
Oven, right?
so, and like having, like, for young women to be like, like, there are so many simple things, like, that they have access to, that they can just do in their kitchen to keep themselves healthy and vibrant, and it seems like a far stretch sometimes to like pop that into mainstream consciousness, but I think just one step at a time, for most people it goes a long way. Like, just you don't have to do everything all at once, but just introducing some new, like, practical, easy, simple, and effective ways of nourishing yourself. I think nourishment goes a long way for young women.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking like girls are really lucky to have people like you know, that they have this availability to go in and find a Rebecca Rozelle, and kind of, get your wisdom, man. So I think that's awesome. I think they have the upper hand, right now, as opposed to, back then our mothers and grandmothers, maybe they didn't have these things. So I definitely want to ask you about plants. Obviously, I want to ask you about diet. There's this whole thing going. Like, I've been vegan for a long time. Like, the reasons I went vegan was it just happened. I don't have some heroic story behind it. But what do you say about diet these days? What kind of diet do you stick to, or what kind of diet would you maybe recommend to someone, or like how do you look at diet at all?
Yeah, I have played around with being a vegetarian and a vegan at different stages in my life, but when I went to my herb teacher when I was 21, I'm coming up on 44 in a couple months here,
Damn,
and
God bless you, girl.
I know, right? Yeah, 44. I feel like it's a big year. Um, but yeah, when I went to her, she basically made me eat meat and have bone broth while I was there, because she said without it, I was denying life and killing myself.
Mm,
But she lived on a farm, and she has very close relationship with the animals. We milked goats while I was there, and I herded
mm,
them. Part of my herbal apprenticeship, learning how the goats interacted with the plants was very much like integral in the way that I understand plants because of what they eat and how they,
Mhm.
you know, they digest them, and like then the milk, and like so like very much so that they are transforming nutrients for us to make them assimilate for us. I mean, not just for us, but for their babies, and but I am very much a proponent of raw milk. I love raw
Okay.
because of like this foundation that I had with it, and I still give my kids raw milk. My kids have very little like health issues at all, and
Knock on wood.
um yeah, I mean, such a blessing. I mean, my diet has changed. I like, I keep it pretty simple, and but I like very high quality nourishing foods, and and with the plants, I have been rotating through 5 primary herbs for since I did my herbal apprenticeship. On a daily basis, I'll have one nourishing herb per day in an infusion form, which is a water extraction,
Okay.
and recommended to make a quart of infusion every day. Of course, I haven't done this every single day, but it is always something that I come back to. Like I have my infusion right now, which is this one is red clover blossom. So I
Wow.
put an ounce of dried herb in a quart jar, fill it to the top with boiling water, and this is a weighed out ounce. So you have to have
Wow.
a scale, and fill it to the top with boiling water, cap it, and you let it sit for 4 to 8 hours or overnight. Strain it in the morning, and then you'll drink this. You can drink some and you'll refrigerate the rest. They are very high in plant proteins. So
Wow.
that means that they spoil rather quickly. And so you have to make them daily. That's the whole thing with them. And it really, because you're consuming like it's a pretty large quantity, like a quart a day of herbal extraction made in this way is a very condensed, nutrient rich. They are very high in minerals as well, which is very much lacking in the American diet. Like standard diet basically has no, mineral content. So this is like a very stabilizing, and it has phytosterols in it that help to like convert different hormones in our body to usable hormones. And so it's like you're getting like a very nutritive, like it acts in so many different complex ways in our body, like in our gene expression and everything, because they're very old plants, like these are, and it brings you back into like kind of like I would say like rewilding of yourself, because then, like a very common plant, red clover, trifolium pratense, grows everywhere, right? And so then when you see it growing, you're like, oh, I like actually identify with like this, the way that it is. It's like you
Wow.
can see like yourself and it like being interconnected in this way of life. And in this way, like, it's like kind of like this reweaving of like not only shamanism and herbalism, but like it's like a tantric path, because it's like this
Yeah.
true intimacy with life itself and coming into like a true, and it's like a non-dual consciousness. We are one. So it's like in the place that we are, giving us place, giving us like real rooted, deep nutrition. Here we are. And I mean, you don't have to harvest these plants yourself because it is a lot of work, and you can buy them from herbal purveyors, and you're still going to get the same benefit from them. Although, I always recommend identifying them in your natural environment, harvesting what you can, even if it's a small amount, and like consuming that in different ways, because it does awaken consciousness in a different way when you are harvesting plants from where you live, for sure. But so this is red clover, and then the 4 other herbs are oat straw, stinging nettle, comfrey, and linden blossom. So those are the 5 primary herbs to start making herbal infusions with, and you can just choose 1 or 2 to start with and just like integrate them into your life. Start with like once or twice a week, drinking a couple quarts. Or if you want to go full on and start making all 5 of them, you will notice a remarkable change in your health. They say, after 10 days of drinking them every day, people have extraordinary health changes. It's
Wow.
actually phenomenal, like how simple and effective, and really it's cheaper than taking a multivitamin, and much more because most multivitamins are made from these big corporations like DuPont,
Hmm.
like the roots of them, and you're only getting like parts of vitamins. You're not getting the full spectrum that lives in these very dynamic plants. So, you can't go wrong as far as I'm concerned.
So I know we agreed to an hour. I have a billion more questions, but I'm gonna honor our hour. So if you could maybe give me your word that we will do this again.
Yeah, I would love to do this again with you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I have so many questions, but I have a few more questions. That way, I get you out of here on time. And one thing I have to say to note, because when we're sitting here, we're talking, so I'm thinking like, I'm thinking about your age. So I'm like, she's probably like, 10 years younger than me. I'm 40. So I'm like, she's probably like in her late 20s something. So the reason I'm saying this is but look, I was so glad that you said your age, because this is my always huge argument for people that argue with, like, Western modern medicine against herbs and everything. I'm like, why don't you look at my wife, or look at like a Rebecca Rozelle, or my mom? She's in phenomenal shape. And then go look at the doctor you're talking to, and see the difference. And then you will notice, well, maybe this is better than the other thing. I'm just saying, man. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm
so
quite proud of my age, actually, because I do feel
yeah.
like, it's like it is a testament to
Listen, you
this.
have to be. Look, my mom is 69. She's up every morning, 5 o'clock, running like 3 miles. I'm like, listen, you should be proud of your age. You should tell everyone, you know what I'm saying, that you got to that age. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a couple more questions, and I'll get you out of here. And again, I'm so thankful for you for doing this. And we need to do this again, because I have so many other questions. So this one post that you had, and we kind of started the conversation with this about plants not just being something that, because I remember being a kid in Ukraine, we seen apples grow, we seen pears grow, we seen, it was all around us. But when I got to America, it seems like that people think that food or plants or whatever comes from a store, that it grows in the Whole Foods or whatever. So we're kind of disconnected from what even plants are. And then you had this beautiful post about how plants are our teachers. So if you could please talk to all of us and kind of help us understand how you got to a place where you realize that these are not just like things to be used and abused and stepped on, and that these are living breathing organisms that are possibly our teachers and our guides. Like, how do we get on that path of thinking that way?
Yeah, I think, really it's up to, like an individual to make the conscious shift for themselves of being like, I want to go deeper with a plant, and starting, like I said, with one plant at a time. Like I said, like these infusions are a fabulous way to do that, because you start to see, like, through just working with one plant, how dynamic the relationship can be, and like how quickly it can change your health and your awareness, and like everything in your environment shifts by using one plant. And then, like introducing more plants, and like seeing that like each of them have such a different consciousness and
Mm,
relationship with your body and your spirit. And then you're like, oh, like I see, like you can take it as deep as you want to go, but like if you are, a psychedelic explorer too, like a
mm,
psychonaut, and then I mean, you've definitely looked at a plant, like while you're under the influence of one of these entheogens, right?
mm,
I mean, and so and then like seeing like that these are multi-dimensional beings, and that they
mm,
take on totally different characteristics as you have a dimensional shift of consciousness, that these are beings of, I think, the most giving beings. They are the ones that, like in Buddhism, they say that green is the highest color. And I always think of that because the green, the plants, they transform everything that goes into the earth
mm,
into this beautiful vibrancy of life, and they
mm,
are the giving, most dynamic being. So, you know, it's a big shift. It's a paradigm shift for people to like start respecting life, and the more respect that you can give yourself really is the more respect you're going to be able to give anything else. So really it's like, how much can I respect myself? And then it's like, it's, I mean, self-love is so cliche, but the more that you care for and can love yourself, the more you're going to want to take better care of yourself and all of the beings in your life. So, like the best way to do that, I think, is to become, very intimate in all of the relationships you have in your life. And,
Wow.
it's like anybody that comes into my home is well taken care of. All the plants, everything in my environment, it's like I do my best to like keep up with the care of everything. It's like I really have respect for myself in that way too.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's beautiful. A personal question. I really needed to. I mean, personal for me. I need your opinion on this because in the like Slavic countries right now, Russia and Altai and Ukraine, and a lot of people are going back to something that was very traditional to us, and then in the Soviet Union, they kind of made it like this scary thing. I'm talking about Amanita muscaria. And with psilocybin and everything coming into legality in a state where I am, like in New Jersey, I'm seeing a lot of people in America, they're turning to psilocybin. In the Slavic countries, Amanita muscaria microdosing. What do you think about Amanita muscaria, and what do you think about microdosing in totality as for psilocybin as well?
So psilocybin and amanita are very different acting
Right.
mushrooms, like completely different. And I have extensive experience with both of them. I love amanita. Is a subtle pattern interrupter and a onriogenic, which means that it can induce lucid dream states.
Hmm.
And what I have noticed that is such a beautiful thing with amanita, and I actually think amanita and psilocybin pair really well together. So if you're using it
Wow.
microdosing, I like to microdose amanita before bedtime,
Oh,
and
wow.
then like can microdose psilocybin, like say the next day, and just like kind of play with it. And I mean, a true microdose is sub-perceptual, so you're not
Hmm.
like blasting consciousness wide open, but
Right.
they like play on each other, like they come into relationship with your own way of your own consciousness. So
Hmm.
and they show up differently for people, but amanita, I had a good friend say to me that she heard that amanita is ibogaine little sister, and ibogaine
Oh,
is also,
wow.
or um which is also an onriogenic, this lucid dream. You go into a extended lucid dream state with iboga, which lasts, several days. With amanita, it's much more short, and you can go into this like during your actual sleep state. And so it's working through patterns in your subconscious. And a lot of times, so like with iboga and with amanita, it's going deep into your psyche. You're doing very deep psyche work, and that you're in like a very deep like lucid dream state. But when you
Hmm.
come out of it, you're not attached to these things. So you don't, a lot of times you don't even have cognitive memory of it. So it's doing all this work somewhat sub-perceptually. Like you're not like in like these,
Hmm.
like you're like, oh my god, I had this like thing, but that you went into these deep layers of consciousness of like doing like deep work on yourself, but you're not attached to it, which is really nice. Like you don't have to carry, it's not like psychotherapy where you're like rehashing all of this shit and like you're like, oh, just mulling it over and over. It's like, nope, I did the work, it's done, I don't even have to think about it, like I mean, a huge gift of these medicines, I think,
Hmm.
it's like takes the heaviness off and the burden off. But that being said, there's several different varieties of amanita. There's amanita
Hmm.
muscaria, Nazarena. Some of these do more deep shadow work, and so like getting into shadow work can be very tricky. But also just know that because there's such deep old medicines that it is worth it to go into these like places of shadow, because when you're done with it, you're done with it. But, just it's nice to have a guide for sure. So like when things come up, and to help you be aware of different projections maybe that come into your field, because that's like a lot of what shadow work is. So yeah, just really it's really deep medicine, but also really accessible and easy to use. And I really love Amanita. And does that answer your question? I
Yes. No, I'm so glad that you said that. Because again, I want to like remind everyone that as Rebecca is speaking, you folks have to like remember that this is someone that has dedicated a lot of time, many years. So a lot of these things are not just like opinion based. This is something that she lives. This is something that she breathes. So, we really have to like, a lot of times information can go over our heads, but we really have to try to process this for what it is. So I'm so glad that you say that about Amanita. And I always say that give Amanita, and especially we call it red and black. You said Pantarina and the regular one is give it like 2 weeks to a month from what I noticed. Because sometimes people, we're so used to like searching for quick results. Anyway, two more questions. I'll get you out of here. But I'm
but
really glad
yeah,
you said that.
one thing about Amanita is people say that it is a full pharmacy in one mushroom, that it
Mm,
can a whole like panacea of issues that people have. So it's, I mean, it's worth experimenting with,
yeah.
like, and it might do things that you didn't even ask for, or you
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah. We even have like Amanita cream and everything because I again like it's really coming back in the Slavic countries. People are really turning to it. So two more questions. People like what kind of service can we turn to you for? Like what do you offer? Can we order herbs from you? Can we get a guidance? Can we get some sort of a program? Like if you could break down to us, to what do we go to see you for?
So I do have a Etsy shop where I sell herbal preparations that are made from wild crafted or fresh, grown by me plants into the high quality menstruums. And then I am in the process of getting my website up, which it should be back up here in the next couple weeks. Actually, I was hoping that it would be up already, but these things through all these different cycles that we're going through, it's taking a little longer. But when that is up, I have a variety of offerings on that. But I do offer mentorships
Yeah,
for deep psyche work with the mushrooms apprentice and mentorship. I do some different tantric work with people, which is not as much of like sexual practice, which can be like a
right.
big misconception. But
Yeah, yeah,
like developing intimacy with the self so that you have an intimate connection with others. And my big, shtick, as you can tell, is with the plants and with the herb medicine. So that's, it all weaves in together. And shamanic herbalism is a big part of my life, and teaching people how to go deep with plants. And I am going to start doing some local circles here where I live in Eugene, Oregon, with supporting mothers on the psychedelic journey, with another woman that I have done some deep mushroom work with. So, and all of these are going to be offerings will be expanding, hopefully, as we move through time here.
nice, nice. Yeah, I just want to say that again, I said this in the beginning, is that what I really love about your page, and we're gonna make sure you send me all the links that you want me to plug in because I want to make sure people go to find you. But again, one thing that I really loved about you and how I became a fan is that every post is like full of wisdom. It's very knowledgeable. It's like you take your time to kind of break things down to us, to kind of give us these these super consciousness, ideas, so to speak. So that's something I really appreciate about you. I really urge people to go look up Nourish Wellness on Instagram. And so the last question for today, you are coming back.
Nourish, nourish wholeness.
Nourish wholeness. Why am I saying wellness? Oh my goodness, man. I must be having
That all
something in my head.
is
Nourish
all good.
wholeness.
I just had to
Nourish
correct you.
wholeness.
So people is nourishwholeness.com. So that by the time people maybe see this, that'll be up. And so nourishwholeness.com, and you can find me on Etsy at Nourish Wholeness. So,
Wholeness, people. Man. I'm so sorry. I must be thinking about something.
that whole,
Yeah.
it's all good.
So we have a tradition on Prove to Me That You're Alive, and some of the greatest people of our time, some of the most impactful people of our time have answered this question, because Prove to Me That You're Alive, it's a philosophy. Like, we're calling on to people to kind of appreciate again that you are here, that you are living. We're calling upon people to follow, find your purpose, follow your mission, and be aware, be appreciative of being here right now. So our traditional question is, what is the meaning of life to Rebecca Rozelle?
Wow, that's a huge question. uh, mm. I've had some pretty deep experiences. I would say the deepest experience for my life is being a mother, and like my increasing the beauty and the love, and I guess, yeah, like the capacity for love for not only my children but for all children, like that this I think that the way forward really is with children, like that, them being like, closest to the ancestors that are just returning and that are going to
Mm,
be here when we're gone, right? So like I just know that I get so lit up by kids, and that, like when I'm around them, it's like, this real like truth and authenticity comes through, and that, they are the path forward. I mean, it's really, it's like, I think, it's also been a very challenging role for me to step into, being a mother,
mm,
from a lot of trauma and stuff, but it is actually like, I feel, you know, part of like the biggest awakening for me is
mm,
being, and like, a steward to, even though I have like this very humble spot where I actually just rent this spot, but I get to work with plants and the nature here in a way that, is very, I get to be the mother of this place too, so
mm.
even though it's like a very humble spot, and yeah, I think that's my answer for you. The meaning, yeah, that's is coming into. I mean, it's where I am in life right now. Is so much of being like, a mother, but also, like within that is finding like divinity again on this earth. Like understanding that we are divine beings.
Yeah.
Like you have like these like very archetypal like life paths that are like we are coming in and like constantly like transforming through like all that is being presented through us. So I just I think that we get lost in like not having like meaning in this life, and like that because of, it's like, I'm from a trailer court in Idaho, right? Like that I could just be meeting like me, right? Like I could just be like no confidence and just like, but it's like really fucking the miracle. This life is a miracle.
Yeah.
You awake that, the more you see the divinity in everything. Like that we have so much purpose and so much meaning, and that, and like that's what I want children to like inherently have in their life. value. Yeah, so
Yeah, man, that was beautifully said. And I talk to my wife about this. Is like you said, it's such a miracle. It's like we get smacked into this consciousness, at some point, like either you're 2 or you're 3 years old, and bam, and you're here, and you're like, oh shit, like what do I do with this? And you're trying to navigate throughout all of this. But again, I realize how much value is in every minute that we're here, and this blessing that we're able to, consciously be here and experience this and go through these different things. So I just want to say this. I'm a huge empath. I feel people right away. If I wouldn't feel you, like I'd probably be like, oh, let's be done in a half an hour. I want to say you're a super super duper beautiful person. You have this amazing energy about you. I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for sharing with us. Your wisdom, your work online. It's a lot of work. I know that it is. I'm so thankful and I feel so blessed. And I want to remind you that you are a blessing to this world. And I feel blessed to got to know you and got to meet you. So please, please, please come back. We got to do this again and again. And yeah, I'm just super grateful. Thank you so much. Keep on doing your thing. Keep on rocking. You're so badass. Your kids are super blessed to have you. So I'll let you take us out of here. You can tell us where we can find you. Maybe do some of your plugins and maybe some of your last thoughts, and we'll get out of here.
yeah. Thank you so much for giving me a place to share my voice. It's really important right now to be able to speak and have a receptive audience. So I'm very thankful for you reaching out. And I am Nourish Wholeness on Instagram, and I was on Facebook until my account got hacked, and now they won't even let me get on there. So I'm no longer on there. But I will have my website up in the next couple weeks again, and that is Nourish Wholeness, not nourishwholeness.com. And I am on Etsy at Nourish Wholeness as well, where I make a plethora of herbal remedies. And yeah, I just really am grateful for everyone who's made it this far in the podcast listening, and thankful for this time. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. You are the greatest ever. We'll be in touch and let's do this again. And say hello to your wonderful kids for me.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Later.
Prove to me that you are alive.